3 days before Christmas, I set a forest green sweater beside a suitcase of wrapped gifts when the phone rang. My brother spoke first, then my mother. Keep the night light, keep the house easy, keep me away. I did not argue. I opened my banking app and pressed pause on every quiet rescue they never saw. That night, a stranger recognized my face in their hallway and remembered the life I refused to abandon. The party continued, until Truth walked in and no one knew where to sit. The kettle clicked to a stop as the night rain stitched the windows with silver lines. Dr. Nora Caldwell set her hospital badge on the counter beside a new forest green sweater, the kind of quiet garment that promises warmth without asking for attention. 3 days before Christmas, the apartment was neat, the suitcase by the door already packed with small gifts wrapped in brown paper and red twine. She glanced at them with the pleasant fatigue of a person who had earned her sleep. Her phone vibrated. The name on the screen was Mason, she answered. Hello. A bright rush of breath. Hey, Nora, I wanted to touch base about Christmas. Of course. Do you need me to bring anything? A pause that felt like a draft under a door. Harper is coming. She is very mindful about energy. How a room feels. With your work. Sometimes it can feel heavy. Heavy, Nora repeated, as if testing the weight of the word. It is nothing personal, he said, eager now, as if speed could soften the edges. It might be better if you sat this one out. For her sake. For everyone. Silence held the line for a beat, then two. Nora looked at the gifts. She pictured a table, a wreath, the soft bell of a laugh she would not hear. All right, she said. Her tone was level, the way one speaks in a storm to avoid shouting. Mason exhaled a relief she could almost see. Thank you for understanding. He hesitated. We will plan something with you soon. Of course, she said. They both knew they would not. When she set the phone down, it rang again. Elaine, her mother. Nora, honey. The voice was gentle and frightened of its own echo. Somewhere, glass touched glass. We are trying to make this easy for everyone. You know how sensitive Harper is. If you come, it could cause confusion. If you come, we might not answer the door. Nora's hand rested on the counter. I hear you. We love you, Elaine said quickly, urgently, as if love were a sealant applied after the fracture. We just want a light evening. I understand. She hung up. The apartment resumed its ordinary sounds, the quiet hum of the refrigerator, the ticking of a distant pipe. Nora stood very still, then reached for her phone again, this time not to call but to calculate. The banking app opened with its tidy rows and calm colours. Mortgage top-up. Pause. Emergency fund transfer. Lock. Mason automatic deposit. Stop. Her fingertip pressed each button with the steadiness she used to press a stethoscope to a rib cage. No announcements. No explanations. Just a line drawn without ink. She put the phone aside and let the silence belong to her. Memory. That precise archivist lifted 2 scenes. Not a list, but a pair of frames she had carried for years. First, a summer barbecue in the Caldwell backyard. The sky the colour of cooled steel. Richard, her father, raised a knife above a sheet cake frosted with primary colours. First children are the trial run, he said, smiling to the cousins. Laughter. The knife slid and a generous corner went to Mason. Nora watched the plate pass from hand to hand, and when it reached her, it was smaller because someone else had been hungry first. Elaine, warm and efficient, squeezed Nora's shoulder. Do not be so serious, darling. Smile for pictures. 2nd February, a winter well that did not end. The water heater died. Elaine's message arrived at midnight. We are in trouble. The repair bill is more than we can handle. Nora worked a double shift the next day and paid the invoice without a signature, because there are rescues that do not require a trumpet. Later, a small text from her mother. You saved us. Nora whispered to the empty room, so softly that even the walls did not hear. I wish I felt saved too. The present returned. Aunt June called near 9, her voice a quilt of warmth and caution. I heard about the change of plans, June said. Do not carry it like a stone. People make strange decisions when they fear tears at a table. I do not want to make anything heavier, Nora replied. I know. You never do. Rain deepened. On the shelf above Nora's desk sat letters from patients' families, the careful handwriting of gratitude. She traced one envelope without opening it. There was a steadiness in her chest that did not feel like anger. It felt like alignment. Across town in the Caldwell house, a picture hung near the staircase. It was an old photo of Nora in a grey sweater, sleeves pushed to the elbows, eyes attentive and unadorned. That night at dinner, Harper Sloane paused as she passed the frame. She leaned closer the way one leans toward a memory that refuses to resolve. A name assembled itself with the quiet certainty of sunrise. Is this Dr. Nora Caldwell? She asked. From Port Townsend Hospice? The physician who cared for my grandmother. The room changed temperature by a degree that only honesty can measure. Chairs creaked. Someone cleared a throat. Laughter, a little too quick, tried to cover the floor. Harper, Mason said lightly. Let us keep it easy tonight. Is that her? Harper asked again, her voice even. A cousin attempted a joke. It missed and fell. Someone said something unkind and called it humour. The conversation moved on without moving forward. Harper placed her napkin beside her plate and excused herself. Later, the apartment intercom glowed. Nora, who had chosen tea instead of sleep, listened as the machine translated a voice into a narrow ribbon of sound. Dr. Caldwell. This is Harper. I hope this is the right number. I got it from your Aunt June. I recognized your photo at dinner. You cared for my grandmother when others had given up. You sat with her. You looked her in the eye. You told her she was not done yet. There was a breath, then another. The cousin laughter on the other side of town had long since cooled. I did not know, Harper continued. I did not know who you were to them. I only knew who you were to us. I am sorry for what was said. I could not sit there and pretend. I left. The message cut out for a heartbeat, then returned softer, close enough to feel the air of the speaker. I wanted you to hear a different version of the truth. You mattered. You matter. Good night. The machine clicked. The room became a room again. Nora stood with one hand on the counter and the other over her sternum, as if measuring a pulse that had decided to keep its own time. Outside, the rain shifted to a finer thread, like breath on glass. Her phone lit once more, not with a call but with a photograph sent by Aunt June. The framed picture of Nora as it hung in the Caldwell house. Under it, the caption read, She sees people. Nora slid the forest green sweater from the chair and laid it over her arm. She did not put it on. She did not need to. In the quiet that followed, something unclenched inside her. Something that had nothing to do with anger and everything to do with light. She pressed the voicemail again, not to doubt it, but to honour it, and listened until the last word faded like a candle that chooses to end rather than be blown out. Then she looked at the wrapped gifts by the door and understood that gifts are sometimes meant to stay with the giver. The apartment settled. The city exhaled. And on a night meant for gathering, Nora felt the first clear outline of a boundary that would not break. Morning arrived with a pale sky and the soft percussion of tires on wet streets. Nora stood by the window with a mug that had gone cold. She replayed Harper's message only once. Then she opened her laptop and found the world already awake. A post was circling through the art community, elegant and spare. It did not name anyone. It did not accuse. It told a small, precise story. A woman had gone to a family celebration expecting warmth, and heard a joke about a physician who stayed with the dying. The woman recognized the physician from a photograph on the staircase. She remembered the quiet presence by her grandmother's bed. She remembered the sentence that had turned a winter toward spring. You are not done yet. The last line was a clear pane of glass. Some smiles can hide cruelty, but I remember what real kindness looks like. Comments gathered like birds. People tagged one another. The post travelled without noise, because truth does not need to shout. Nora closed the laptop and felt a space open behind her ribs, an emptiness that was not sorrow. It was the room a person finds when she stops apologising for occupying space. By noon, an email lit her screen. The subject line read, "Let us reset things." It was signed by all three, Elaine, Richard, and Mason. The language was polished and careful, like a speech prepared for a committee. They regretted how emotions might have been perceived. They suggested a neutral brunch after the holidays. They believed in open-hearted dialogue. In the fourth paragraph, the request appeared with the steadiness of a hand sliding a paper across a desk. Would Nora please reach out to Harper and ask her to take the post down? Nora did not answer. She printed a list of patients for the afternoon and slid it into her bag. Work was a harbour. It was also a mirror. In rooms of quiet medicine, she could not pretend that pain was an impolite guest. Pain was a teacher. So was love. As dusk settled, Aunt June called. Her voice carried the weight of an eyewitness who wishes she had not seen. "I pieced it together," June said. "Harper saw the photo in the hall and asked if the woman was you. Someone tried to make light of it. It was not a kind sentence. It was presented as a joke. She stood up. She left. The evening did not recover. Nora pressed the phone closer. She knew jokes that ask a room to agree with what is small. She had spent a lifetime not laughing. "Thank you for telling me," she said. The next morning, Nora was called into Dr. Patel's office. The hallway smelled of lemon cleaner and rain. Dr. Patel stood when she entered and gestured to a chair. On the desk lay a printed email and a transcript of a voicemail. The email was from a philanthropic liaison who sometimes attended hospital events with community donors. The voicemail was from Richard Caldwell. It expressed concern about Nora's stability and proposed a quiet check for her sake. "We are obligated to review any message like this," Dr. Patel said gently. "I want to be very clear. Your performance is excellent. Your colleagues speak of your steadiness. I believe the message was sent because someone was frightened and did not know what to do with fear." Nora placed a folder on the desk. "Here are my quarterly evaluations and several letters from families. I am well. I am exhausted in ordinary ways." Dr. Patel read the first lines of a letter, then closed the folder. "I did not need these," she said, "but I am glad to hold them." She paused. "Take tomorrow. Walk by the water. If anyone contacts the hospital again, you will let me handle it." Nora stepped back into the corridor with a feeling that surprised her. It was not relief alone. It was the sensation of standing on a floor that would not give way. That evening her phone rang. Elaine. The voice was tired and very human. "Nora," she said, "your brother is in trouble. Some galleries have declined to meet with him. His name is being passed around with unkind words. Can you help us speak to Harper? Ask her to consider the damage. She respects you." Nora leaned against the kitchen counter and watched the steam from the kettle fade. "Mother," she said, "I am not public relations. I will not ask anyone to erase their honesty. I will not manage the weather in our house." There was a long breath on the other end, an exhale that sounded like letting go of a rope. "I do not know how to keep things from breaking," Elaine whispered. "Things do not break only because someone tells the truth," Nora said. "They break when we insist that truth does not belong at the table." After they hung up, a message from Mason arrived, not to Nora directly, but accidentally, as a screenshot of his notes. The draft of an apology was unfinished, full of edits and pauses. I know you paid for the water heater in February. I know you booked that flight for me last year when my card failed. I know you have covered things you never mentioned. You make the air feel heavier. Maybe that is on me. Maybe I call it heavy, because I do not know how to sit still when things are real. Nora read the lines twice, then sent one reply. You do not owe me money. You owe me truth. Night arrived early. The doorbell rang at 7. Through the peephole, Nora saw a small assembly, close as a portrait. Elaine with her hair pulled back, Richard with his winter coat unbuttoned, Mason with his hands in his pockets. Their faces were careful, their breath lifted in white threads. Nora opened the door and held the frame with one hand. We want to talk, Elaine said softly. We do not want to fight. I do not want to fight either, Nora said. I do not want to be the person you call when you need a quiet rescue, and the person you exclude when you fear a quiet truth. Richard stepped forward. The lines beside his mouth were deeper than the day before. I called a man I barely know, he said. I said a thing I cannot defend. I was afraid. I was clumsy. I am sorry. Nora studied his eyes. Fear had shaped his sentence. Pride had shaped the delay. She nodded once. Thank you for naming it. Elaine glanced down, and for the first time Nora saw the thin paper in her hand, the latest mortgage statement. Without Nora's top-up, the numbers were less forgiving. We will manage, Elaine said quickly, as if to protect Nora from guilt. Her voice trembled. We will do better. You will learn, Nora answered, and her tone carried no victory. That is different, and it is better. For a moment they stood like a family at a photograph's edge, undecided about where to place their hands. Mason lifted his gaze. If Harper posts again, he said, I will accept it. I will tell the truth. That is the only thing that travels well, Nora said. The hallway light flickered, then steadied. From somewhere down the block a child laughed. It sounded like a bell. A vibration passed across Nora's counter. Her phone face lit with a calendar notice. Meeting. Department Administration, 9 a.m. The subject line was neutral. The timing was not. She felt a tightness catch at the base of her throat and then release. Procedure is procedure, Dr. Patel had said. She trusted the sentence, and the person who had spoken it. The doorbell rang a second time. All three turned. A courier stood at the threshold with a small envelope sealed in dark blue wax. Delivery for Dr. Caldwell, Nora signed. The envelope was heavier than it looked. On the back, in a careful hand, a name, Harper Sloane. She looked up to find her family watching her. Their faces open and uncertain, like travelers arriving in a city where the language is close to their own and not quite the same. She held the envelope to her heart, then stepped forward until the doorframe touched her shoulder. Not tonight, she said gently. Another day. She closed the door with the soft finality of a book finding its place on a shelf. In the quiet hallway, the three figures remained a moment longer, smaller now, not diminished but reduced to scale. Inside, Nora slid her finger beneath the seal. The wax gave way with a sound like a sigh. The letter waited. The meeting waited. The boundary held. The seal broke with a soft crack, and the letter breathed open in Nora's hands. Thick paper. Ink that bled a little where a pause had been too long. She carried it to the desk and sat with the steadiness of a nurse lowering a patient back to rest. Dr. Caldwell, the letter began. My grandmother still does yoga on Tuesdays and buys pears at the Saturday market. She quotes you when the morning feels thin. You are not done yet. I left that dinner because I could not sit in a room that turned reverence into a joke. I understand that this has made things difficult for people you love. I am sorry for the storm. I do not regret the truth. Please know that you are seen, not as a symbol, but as a person who stayed when staying was the work. There was a passage in the centre where the handwriting grew small, as if the writer wanted to make a private room for 2 sentences. When my grandmother woke from that winter, she asked why you held her hand so long. You said, because no one should cross a dark hallway alone. I carry that line like a match in my pocket. Thank you for the light. Nora laid the letter flat and framed it with her palms as if to steady a compass. In the quiet, she felt her pulse settle into a patient rhythm, not triumphant, not defiant, simply aligned. She placed the letter in a plain wooden frame and hung it above her desk, where the screen's blue would meet the paper's cream, and where gratitude would watch her complete the ordinary work of notes and orders. Morning arrived clear as glass. At 9, Nora stepped into the administrative office. The blinds were drawn half open, dividing the winter sun into careful stripes. Dr. Patel stood, offered water, and slid 2 documents across the desk, the liaison email and a summary of the hospital's review. We documented the messages, as policy requires, Dr. Patel said. We have closed the matter with no action. Your colleagues have provided statements of support. If anyone contacts the hospital in the future, those communications will be directed to me. Nora met her supervisor's gaze. Thank you for treating fear with procedure instead of rumour. Process protects the good, Dr. Patel said. She softened. Take the afternoon. Walk by the water. The tide is kind today. On the street, gulls wheeled over the harbour like paper cutouts pinned to the sky. Nora let the cold air touch her face. The silence that opened inside her was not emptiness, but space, a room she could furnish with choice. On a bench painted the colour of worn salt, she sat and watched a small boat push cleanly through the bay, the wake unspooling behind it, a line drawn and already fading. By evening, a new email arrived from her family. It did not read like a press release. It read like people learning how to use their own voices, from Richard. I called a man I barely know, and used the language of concern to disguise the shape of my pride. I was wrong. I am sorry. From Elaine. I have tried to make dinners that are light and conversations that are easy. I confused ease with kindness. I am sorry for asking you to carry the weight somewhere else. From Mason, I have called gravity heavy because I did not know how to sit inside silence. I am listening. I want to change what I praise and what I joke about. Nora answered the message with a list that was not a demand, but a set of foundations. No jokes about her work. No request to polish the family image. If there is to be a conversation, then there will be a counsellor's chair present, even if the counsellor is on a screen. Boundaries spoken aloud and honoured in practice. There would be no negotiation around those lines. There would be love where love is possible, and distance where distance is necessary. They asked to meet the next day. She said yes on the porch, with the door between them and the house behind her, because a threshold can be both welcome and wall. The afternoon arrived with a clean cold. Elaine stood with gloved hands wrapped around a thermos. Richard held the mortgage statement folded away, as if to keep its numbers from breathing. Mason's collar was turned up against the wind. Nora stepped into the doorway and did not invite them in. That refusal was not a punishment. It was a setting of the stage. I will begin, Richard said, and he did not clear his throat to buy time. I am ashamed of the path I chose. I wanted to make a problem private, but I did not admit that I was the problem. I told a stranger you were unstable because I was unstable. I apologize. Elaine lifted the thermos with a trembling smile. I made tea. I will not hand it to you unless you want it. I do not want to press warmth you did not ask for. I would like the tea, Nora said. She took the cup and wrapped her hands around it so her mother could see them warm. We will speak plainly. There will be no jokes to hide the sharpness. Mason looked up, eyes reddened by cold and by something else. Harper asked me if I wanted to be a man who admires bravery, or one who applauds comfort. I do not know how to be the first kind yet, but I want to learn. He held out his phone, screen on, message open. I will tell the truth if anyone asks me what happened. I will not call honesty unkindness. Good, Nora said. The truth is the ground. Everything else is furniture. A sparrow landed on the railing and hopped 3 exact steps before flying away. For a minute they stood with the small bird's certainty still hanging in the air. Family counselling, Elaine said, as if testing a foreign word. I will try. I'm afraid of what will surface. Fear is not a map, Nora answered. It is weather. We can move through weather. They spoke a little longer, and then the conversation ended because good conversations end before the ground is worn thin. Nora thanked them for coming. She did not make a promise about Christmas. She did make a promise about honesty. She stepped back and closed the door with quiet hands. Inside, the apartment received her as it had before. Kettle, desk, green sweater on the chair. She sat and opened the document where she kept her stories and her schedules. She added a line break and then, for the first time, she wrote a sentence to the people who might someday hear the story told aloud. If you have been the quiet person who kept the beams from splitting while no one looked up, write the word boundary in the margins of this night. Say it out loud once for your own sake. Let the room hear that you exist. She saved the file and turned in her chair to face the framed letter. The paper did not glow the way a screen glows, but it held the light in a way that screens cannot, like a bowl holding water. She raised her hand and touched the frame with the back of her fingers, the way one touches the forehead of a child before sleep. Evening folded around the building. In the distance, a siren lifted and fell. Somewhere someone needed what she knew how to give. She breathed once, twice, and felt the shape of her boundary hold. Not a wall, but a shoreline. The tide would come and go. The line would remain. She stood, poured the rest of the tea into the sink and washed the cup. She turned off the light above the stove and the small lamp by the chair. At the door she paused, listening to the ordinary symphony of an apartment at rest. There is a kind of power that does not make a sound when it enters a room. It is the power of someone who has chosen where she stands and who will not be moved by apologies that do not change behavior. It is the power of silence with a spine. On the desk, the letter watched. On the wall, the green sweater waited. In the dark, the boundary shone the way a harbour shone a mile out. Steady and certain, telling every vessel that there is a shore, and that the shore is not going anywhere. There is a moment, quiet and almost invisible, when a person stops asking a locked door to open and simply sets down the key. That is where this story leaves us. Not in triumph, not in defeat, but in a clear, steady place where truth can breathe. Nora did not win an argument. She did not rewrite her family in a single afternoon. She did something smaller and more enduring. She named what hurt. She protected what mattered. She chose to stand in a light that did not require permission. In doing so, she discovered that boundaries are not walls. They are shorelines. The tide can press as it wishes. The line remains. If there is a lesson here, it is not that silence is a weapon. It is that silence can be a form of care when it is chosen with intent. She did not shout. She did not plead. She did not turn herself into a bridge that others could cross without looking down. She said, with her actions, that love and honesty must live in the same room. She asked those who wanted her presence to welcome her whole, not her edited. Perhaps you have been the quiet backbone in your own house. Perhaps you have held up beams while others complimented the ceiling. If so, let tonight be gentle. Place a hand over your heart and listen for a steady rhythm that has survived many winters. You do not need to prove your worth to those who benefit from forgetting it. You are already living proof. If this story found you at the right hour, I invite you to share the line that stayed with you. Was it the letter in the wooden frame? Was it the soft click of a door that closed without anger? Was it the sentence that turned a winter toward spring? Your words may be the match that someone else needs to hold. And if you would like to walk with me through more stories where courage looks like stillness and love looks like truth, I welcome you to stay. Your presence helps these quiet tales find the people who are waiting for them. Leave a thought. Leave a single word if that is all you have. Perhaps the word is boundary. Perhaps the word is begin. The lights are low now. The harbour is steady. The shoreline is clear. Wherever you are, may you stand where your life feels aligned, and may those who love you learn the shape of your light.